Welcome to our fun little study group for PP5361 Theory and Management of Public Service Organizations. This is a bonus section based on the zone-to-win leadership style that Paul Mons Jr. talked about today. It turns out that Zone to Win is a book by Geoffrey A. Moore, and we found a great overview that we would like to share with you today.
It is a pleasure to be here. And honestly, I'm glad we're taking a moment to really dig into this because when Paul brought this up in the lecture, I saw a lot of heads nodding, but I also saw, a lot of furrowed brows.
Oh, for sure.
It's one of those concepts that sounds great on a PowerPoint slide, Zone to Win, but when you actually try to map it onto the chaos of a public service organization or, even a private enterprise, it gets complicated fast.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we're sitting there in class thinking about public value and stakeholder management, and then suddenly we're talking about these high-tech disruption frameworks. It feels like a bit of a genre shift.
It really does.
But the more I looked into Geoffrey Moore's work, the more I realized that this isn't just for Silicon Valley startups. This is basically a survival guide for any large established organization that is terrified of becoming irrelevant.
That is the perfect way to frame it, irrelevance. That's the ghost haunting this entire discussion. Whether you're running a transit authority, a federal agency, or a massive software company, the threat is identical.
Right.
The world changes faster than your internal bureaucracy can keep up. And Moore's book is essentially an attempt to solve that specific mismatch.
Right. And before we get into the nuts and bolts of the how, the four zones, and the matrix and all that fun stuff, we really need to sit with the why, because the stakes here are they're incredibly high.
They're existential, really.
Yeah. When I was going through the source material, there was this one slide that honestly gave me chills. It was titled, Leaders That Miss the Next Waves.
Ah, yes. The graveyard of giants.
It really is a graveyard. The source listed 56 companies. And we aren't talking about small, fly-by-night operations that ran out of cash in 6 months. We are talking about the absolute titans of industry. The companies that literally built the modern world.
The household names.
Exactly. Let me just read a few of these names to set the mood, and I want you to think about how permanent these companies felt at their peak. DEC, Wang, Silicon Graphics, Atari.
Atari. Wow, that's a throwback.
Commodore, Palm.
Man, those names bring back some memories. Palm especially. I remember when the Palm Pilot was the absolute pinnacle of organizational technology. If you had a stylus, you were the future.
You were living in the year 3000. And I still have a BlackBerry in a drawer somewhere that I can't bring myself to throw away. It feels like an archaeological artifact now.
It is.
But the list keeps going. Lotus, Nortel, Medscape, BlackBerry, of course, Motorola, Nokia, Sony. I mean, at one point, Nokia was mobile phones. They had something like 50% global market share.
It's hard to even imagine that now.
And now, there are case studies in business schools for what went wrong.
And here is the thing that makes that list so haunting. And this is a point Geoffrey Moore makes very clearly, and I think it's critical for our study group to grasp. These companies didn't fail because they had bad management teams.
Wait, really? Because the common narrative is always, oh, they got lazy, or the CEO was out playing golf, or, they were just stupid. You're saying that's not the case?
No, not at all. In fact, in many of these cases, they had the best management teams in the world. They had brilliant engineers, savvy marketers, and the deepest pockets imaginable.
So they were doing everything right.
They did everything right according to the traditional MBA playbook. They optimized their operations, they listened to their best customers, they hit their quarterly targets with military precision.
Okay, so that's terrifying. If they were doing everything right, how did they end up on the miss the wave list? It feels like you're telling me you can drive the speed limit, wear your seatbelt, check your mirrors, and still drive right off a cliff.
That is exactly what happens. That is the central paradox of this whole deep dive. How do brilliant leaders with massive resources still manage to lose their future?
Okay, so what's the answer?
The answer lies in the structure. It lies in how they organize themselves. They were organized to win the current game, the game they were already dominating, but they were structurally incapable of playing the new game that was coming right at them.
So it's not a talent problem.
It is rarely a talent problem. It is almost always a structural problem. The machinery that makes them successful today is the exact same machinery that prevents them from succeeding tomorrow.
Wow. Okay, so that brings us to our guide for today, Geoffrey A. Moore. Now, I did a little digging into his background because I always like to know who's preaching the gospel, and I found something kind of surprising.
Oh, yeah.
You'd expect a guy writing about high-tech strategy and zone to win to be a computer science guy, or maybe a pure finance shark from Wall Street.
But he's not, is he?
No. He has a PhD in English literature from the University of Washington. He literally taught English for 4 years before he even entered the high-tech world.
Which I think is actually a massive advantage for him and maybe why his books resonate so well even outside of tech. If you look at his career, starting with his first famous book, Crossing the Chasm, and then Escape Velocity, and now Zone to Win,
Right.
he acts less like an accountant and more like a pattern recognizer.
A literary critic for business.
Precisely. He understands narrative. He understands that business isn't just math. It's a story about human behavior, adoption curves, and organizational dynamics. He sees the plot twists before the characters, the CEOs, do.
That makes a lot of sense. He's looking at the tragedy of Nokia and seeing a Shakespearean flaw, not just a spreadsheet error.
Exactly. And today, he splits his time between consulting for startups, so he sees the disruptors, the barbarians at the gate, and advising massive giants like Salesforce, Microsoft, and Intel. So he sees the disrupted. He is standing right in the middle of the battlefield.
So let's get into the battle. Moore describes the core problem as a crisis of prioritization. Now, coming from a public service background, I hear prioritization, and I immediately think budget cuts. Is that what he means?
It's related, but it's more specific. This stems from the fact that we are living in what he calls a high-velocity market. The sources are very clear on this. You cannot stay still. Speed plus disruption means if you aren't growing, you are dying.
Which feels a little different than the public sector, right? I mean,
Yeah,
the
true.
Department of Motor Vehicles isn't trying to grow its market share.
True, but think about it in terms of relevance and service delivery. If the DMV is still using paper forms and 3-hour lines when the entire world has moved to instant mobile verification, they aren't growing, but they are failing. They're losing their legitimacy, so the pressure is the same.
That's a good point.
And this creates a tension. Established organizations, whether that's a government agency or a company like Microsoft, have two completely conflicting imperatives.
Okay, lay them on me.
Imperative number 1, play offense. You have to catch the next wave. This is why you have business development teams, R&D labs, and strategy innovation groups.
The fun stuff.
The fun stuff, right. You want to be the one riding the wave, like Apple did with the iPhone or Salesforce did with the cloud. In the public sector, this might be, we need to become a smart city, or we need to use AI for permit processing.
Right, the exciting stuff, the stuff that gets you on the cover of magazines. But then there is imperative number 2.
Play defense. You have to prevent the next wave from crashing over you and drowning your current franchise. You have a cash cow, the thing that pays the bills right now, and you have to protect it at all costs.
And this creates that crisis of prioritization because, and correct me if I'm wrong, both of these imperatives want the same money and the same people.
That is exactly it. And this is where the drama happens. Imagine you're the CEO or the agency director.
Yeah.
You have a cash cow business. Let's say it's your legacy software license business. That makes 95% of your revenue. And you have a calf. This new, tiny, risky idea that makes 0% revenue right now, but might save you in 5 years. The cash cow has a really loud voice.
Of course it does. It pays everyone's salary.
Right. It has entrenched interests. The sales team knows how to sell it. The customers are asking for features for it. The shareholders want returns from it now. So, do you take resources away from the thing feeding you today to feed the thing that might feed you tomorrow?
It sounds obvious when you say, yes, you must invest in the future, but in the boardroom, in that moment, that must be a nightmare, a really tough call.
It's a brutal battle. Moore points out that this crisis usually hits the go-to-market functions the hardest. Sales, marketing, professional services.
Why them specifically?
Because the new idea needs them to explain this complex new thing to the world. And the old business needs them to hit the quarterly quota. You can't do both with the same people at the same time without something breaking.
And usually the something that breaks is the future. The immediate pressure wins, the new idea gets starved, and you end up on that list of 56 failed companies.
Exactly. The urgent always drowns out the important. So Moore says, stop trying to mash this all together. You cannot rely on people's good intentions to solve this. You need structure. You need to separate these activities into distinct zones.
Okay, so let's unpack that framework. I love a good mental model, especially if it helps us make sense of the chaos. In the materials, there is this grid, the 4 zones. Now, be honest with me. Is this just another consulting 2x2 matrix?
Yeah.
Because I've seen a million of these.
It is a 2x2 matrix, I admit, but it's one that actually reflects the plumbing of an organization, not just some abstract strategy. Visualizing this is helpful.
Okay, walk me through it.
Imagine a simple box divided into 4. The vertical axis is about your financial focus. At the top, you have revenue performance, things focused on making money. At the bottom, you have enabling investments, things focused on spending money to build capacity or future options.
Okay. Top is making money, bottom is spending or investing money. Simple enough. What about the horizontal axis?
The horizontal axis is the type of innovation time horizon. On the right, you have sustaining innovation, keeping the current ship sailing smooth. On the left, you have disruptive innovation, building a completely new ship.
So that gives us 4 boxes,
Right.
4 zones. Walk us through the old world first, the stuff on the right side of the chart.
Sure, let's start on the right side, the sustaining side. Top right is the performance zone. This is Horizon 1. This is the engine. Its job is to make the top line revenue,
The cash cow.
the cash cow,
Oh.
then move down. Bottom right is the productivity zone, also Horizon 1. This is the engine room's maintenance crew. Their job is to make the bottom line efficiency, compliance, keeping things running smoothly.
Okay, so the right side is business as usual, the
Yeah.
stuff that keeps the lights on and the payroll checks clearing.
Basically, yes. Now move to the left, the disruptive side. Bottom left is the incubation zone. This is Horizon 3. This is where you are planting seeds for things that won't be huge for years.
The skunk works, the labs, the experiments.
Right. And finally, the most dangerous place of all, the top left, the transformation zone, Horizon 2. This is where you take a disruption and try to scale it up to be a massive revenue generator.
Now, the goal here isn't just to put things in boxes for the sake of organizing your desk,
Yeah.
right? The point is to manage them differently.
No, the goal is to operate all 4 zones in harmony. And that is incredibly hard because, as Moore points out, each zone has a completely different funding charter, different metrics, and a different cadence.
So if you use the wrong metric on the wrong zone, you're in trouble.
You're in big trouble. If you apply performance zone metrics to the incubation zone, you will kill the innovation immediately.
Can you give me an example of that, like a real-world example?
Sure. Imagine you have a new startup idea inside your agency, a new app to help citizens report potholes, say. It hasn't launched yet. If you judge it by how many potholes were reported this week, which is a performance zone metric, the answer is 0. So you fire everyone. But that's the wrong metric. You should be asking, did the prototype work? Did we get 5 people to test it successfully? Did we validate the core technology?
It's like trying to judge a jazz musician by the rules of a marching band. They are both music, but if you mix up the rules, it's just noise.
That's a great analogy. And most companies are trying to play jazz and march at the same time and tripping over their own feet.
Okay, let's do a deep dive into each of these, starting with the heavy lifters. The Horizon 1 zones. The performance zone. You called this the engine.
The performance zone is where the rubber meets the road. The mandate here is simple. Make the number. Deliver material bookings and revenue.
Hold on, let's pause on some terminology here for the non-accountants in the study group. Material bookings and revenue. First, material. I assume we don't mean fabric.
No. Material in a financial context means significant enough to matter to the overall health of the company. If Microsoft makes $100 billion, a $1 million project is not material. It's a rounding error. Moore defines material generally as something that constitutes at least 10% of the total revenue.
Okay, 10%. That's a high bar. And bookings versus revenue. I feel like those get used interchangeably, but they aren't the same thing.
Crucial distinction. Think of it like a restaurant. Booking is when the customer orders the meal and agrees to pay. The contract is signed. Revenue is when they actually eat the meal and you put the cash in the register. In the performance zone, you are focused on both, getting the commitment, the booking, and then delivering the goods, the revenue.
Got it. So in this zone, Moore suggests a structure called the performance matrix. Paint a picture for us.
Imagine a spreadsheet. The rows are your sources of revenue, your business units or product lines. So for a car company, row 1 is SUVs, row 2 is sedans, row 3 is trucks. The columns are your channels of bookings, your sales regions or industry verticals. Column A is North America, column B is Europe, column C is Asia.
So it's a grid. Every cell in that grid represents a specific product being sold in a specific region. And someone's name is in that box.
Exactly. Someone owns that number. And there's a specific rule about size here, that 10% rule we touched on. Moore argues that no row or column should be less than 10% of the total revenue.
Why that specific number? Why not have 50 small products?
Focus. If you have 100 tiny rows that each contribute 0.5% of revenue, you have a fragmented mess. You can't manage it efficiently. The performance zone is about execution, not experimentation.
Right.
You want big, clear blocks of revenue that have owners. If something is too small, it doesn't belong in the performance zone yet.
It belongs in incubation.
Exactly. It needs to grow up first.
That's really interesting. I feel like in public service, we violate this constantly. We have 1,000 tiny programs that have been running for 20 years. None of them are material, but we keep them all in the main budget. We never clean out the garage.
And that drags down the speed of the entire organization. The cadence in the performance zone needs to be high pressure. Weekly commits, monthly status reports, quarterly reviews. You are grinding it out. If you have too much clutter, you can't grind effectively.
And the sources emphasize that this zone bears the heavy lifting for the whole enterprise.
It does. I think innovation consultants often badmouth this zone. They call it the legacy or the dinosaurs, but Moore is very respectful of it. If the performance zone fails, you don't have the money to fund the incubation zone. You don't have the runway to do a transformation.
So you can't have the fun without the boring.
You can't. So while business as usual sounds boring, it is the lifeblood that allows everything else to happen.
It's the parents working the 9-to-5 job so that the kid can go to art school.
Perfectly put.
Okay, so that's the top line revenue. Now let's look at the bottom line, the productivity zone. Now this sounds like where all the fun goes to die. Cost centers.
The productivity zone is often misunderstood. People think it's just back office stuff. HR, IT, legal, finance, marketing. But Moore calls it the earning engine. Their focus is enabling the enterprise to operate. And the mantra here is doing more with a lot less.
Because they don't generate direct revenue.
Right.
The legal department doesn't sell anything.
Exactly. They are cost centers. But here is the fascinating nuance Moore introduces that I think is critical for our listeners, especially those in government who live in this zone, the distinction between programs and systems.
This was a big aha moment for me in the reading. Because in my head, I kind of lump all support work together. But he says they are mutually incompatible. Break this down for us.
They are completely different animals. Programs are customized services. They are user-funded, meaning a business unit asks for them and pays for them out of their budget, and they are optimized for effectiveness.
Give me an example.
Think of a specific marketing campaign for a new product launch. Let's say we are launching a new public health initiative. We need a specific ad campaign, a specific website, maybe some events. It needs to be custom, catchy, and tailored. It's a program. It has a start date and an end date.
Okay. And systems.
Systems are standard infrastructure. They are centrally funded, and they are optimized for efficiency. Think of the email server or the payroll system. You don't want the email server to be custom and catchy.
No, you want it to work.
You want it to work every time for everyone as cheaply as possible. It's like a public utility. Everyone gets the same service under the same rules.
So where does the trouble start?
The trap is blending them. If you try to run a system like a program, you get chaos. Imagine if every department in a government agency decided to build their own custom payroll software because they wanted it to be tailored to their needs.
Oh my God, you'd have 50 different systems that don't talk to each other and cost 10 times as much. It's a nightmare.
Exactly, and we see that all the time. But the reverse is also true. If you try to run a program like a system, say, treating a creative marketing campaign with the same rigid standardization as payroll, you get ineffective, boring garbage that doesn't sell anything.
Please submit Form 34B in triplicate to request a color change in the logo.
Exactly. So you have to keep them separate. And critically, the productivity zone is where the resources come from for disruption. When the company needs to pivot, you can't strip money from the sales team in the performance zone without hurting revenue. So you have to get more efficient in the productivity zone to free up cash and people to fund the new stuff.
So you squeeze the systems to fund the future. That's the strategy.
Precisely. You standardize the back office to pay for the revolution.
All right, let's move to the revolution, the Horizon 3. The incubation zone, this is the fun part, right? The mad scientists, the skunk works, the beanbag chairs.
It is fun, but it is also where a lot of money gets set on fire if you aren't careful. The focus here is creating options for the future, things that won't be huge for years. But Moore clarifies something important. This isn't just R&D where you're tinkering with technology.
When is it then?
You are funding independent operating units, IOUs.
IOUs, like an IOU money.
No, not debt. Think of it like a mini company, an independent operating unit. Moore suggests treating the incubation zone like a venture capital portfolio inside the company.
So like Shark Tank in the office?
Kind of.
Yeah.
Each IOU has a general manager. It has its own little sales function, its own product people, and crucially, they do not share resources with the performance matrix.
Why not? I mean, if you are Microsoft and you have this massive global sales force, why not just tell them, hey, while you're visiting the client, sell this cool new little gadget too? Wouldn't that be faster?
You would think so, but it's actually fatal because the big company sales force will crush the new idea. Remember, the performance zone is optimized for making the number. If a sales rep has a choice between selling a $1 million contract for the established product that takes 1 week to close,
Or a $5,000 contract for a buggy new beta product that takes 6 months to explain.
which one will they prioritize?
The $1 million deal.
Yeah.
Every time. Their commission depends on it.
Exactly. The sales rep isn't evil, they are rational. So the incubation zone has to be fenced off. It needs its own air supply. It needs its own specialized salespeople who are paid differently. And it shouldn't be judged on revenue.
If not revenue, what do we judge them on? Because in government, we love metrics. If I can't measure the ROI, I can't fund it.
You measure them on milestones. Just like a startup in Silicon Valley, there is a seed phase. Does the technology actually work? Can you get a prototype to function?
Okay, check.
There is a Series A. Do you have a minimum viable product, an MVP, and have you found your first few customers who are willing to use it? Then there's a Series B. Can you win a beachhead market?
Beachhead market. That sounds military.
It is. It refers to the D-Day invasion. You don't try to take all of Europe at once. You take one beach. You hold it, then you expand. In business, it means dominating a small, specific segment completely before you try to attack the whole world. You need a lighthouse customer.
I love that term, the lighthouse customer. Who are they?
These are visionary leaders who are in trouble. They have a broken process that the standard market can't fix. They are willing to take a risk on your buggy, unproven innovation because they are desperate for a solution. They see your tech as a potential life raft.
So they aren't buying it because it's perfect. They were buying it because they are drowning.
Yes. The goal in incubation isn't to make profit. It's to prove that you have a whole product solution that actually solves a real problem for these lighthouse customers.
And there was a note in the source that said, failure here is a virtue. That is really hard to swallow for a bureaucrat. Failure is not a virtue in government.
It is, but think about the math. If you spend $50 million scaling a product that nobody wants, that's a disaster. If you spend $1 million in the incubation zone to find out nobody wants it, you just saved $49 million. Failure in Horizon 3 is cheap learning. Failure in Horizon 2 is expensive.
Which leads us to the scary place. Horizon 2. The transformation zone. Why does Moore call this the crisis zone? I feel like incubation is risky, but transformation sounds violent.
It is violent to the organization's culture, to its budgets. This is the valley of death. This is where the rubber leaves the road and you try to build a plane while flying. The focus here is scaling a disruptive option to material revenue.
That 10% number again.
That 10% number. You are trying to take a startup idea from incubation and force feed it until it becomes 10% of the giant enterprise's revenue.
So you're taking the cute little calf and trying to turn it into a prize-winning bull overnight.
Exactly. And this is incredibly painful for the organization.
Why is it so painful? Everyone wants growth, right? It sounds exciting.
They want growth, but they hate sacrifice. To make a transformation work, you have to relocate substantial resources, millions of dollars, your best people, to something that, right now, has lower productivity than your old business.
You're taking your best players off the field.
Yes. You are deliberately making the company less efficient in the short term to survive the long term. Wall Street hates that. Middle management hates that.
I can just imagine the meeting. The CEO says, okay, performance zone, you're doing great. I'm taking 20% of your budget and giving it to this new project that loses money.
And the sales VP screams, if you take my budget, I'll miss my target. And the CEO has to say, I know, but if we don't do this, we won't have a company in 5 years.
That takes a lot of guts. Political capital.
It takes immense leadership. And this leads to Moore's strict rule for this zone, the rule of one.
The rule of one, meaning
You can only run one transformation initiative at a time, period.
just one. But big companies have so many resources. Microsoft, Google, the U.S. government, they have billions. Why can't they do two things at once?
Because a transformation isn't just a project, it's a heart transplant for the company. It requires the CEO's undivided attention. It requires the entire organization to pivot. If you try to do two, you will fail at both. You will confuse the sales force, you will dilute the budget, and you will exhaust your people.
So it's about focus.
Total obsessive focus. The CEO must make this the #1 topic at every single staff meeting. No retreat, no hedging your bet.
So if you have 3 great ideas that are ready to graduate from the incubation zone, you have to pick one and tell the other 2 to wait.
Yes, or kill them, or spin them out into a new company. But you cannot bring 3 into the transformation zone. That is a death sentence.
It sounds exhausting just talking about it.
It is. That's why you don't stay in the transformation zone forever. You get in, you scale the disruption to 10%, and then you move it to the performance zone as a new normal row in the matrix. Or, if it fails, you kill it fast. But you don't linger. You can't live in the operating room.
The sources mention some specific challenges in this zone that make it even harder. Things like scarce domain expertise.
Right. If you are Microsoft trying to move into cloud computing in the 2010s, your old sales force knows how to sell Windows licenses in a box. They don't know how to sell cloud subscriptions by the minute. They don't speak the language. So you have a skills gap. You have to retrain an army or hire a new one, which is slow and expensive.
And misaligned compensation. We touched on this, but it's huge.
It's a classic sales problem. Sales reps follow the money. If the commission plan is better on the easy old thing, they won't sell the hard new thing. In the transformation zone, you usually have to subsidize the sales, pay them extra, overpay them to sell the new thing. You have to bribe your own employees to save the company.
Wow. And account management resistance.
Your existing customers might hate the change. They liked the old way. You are disrupting them too. So you have internal friction from your own people and external friction from your customers all at the same time. It is a very, very dangerous time for a company.
So we have the 4 zones: performance, productivity, incubation, transformation. It's a great map. But Moore also talks about the strategy of how you use them. He breaks it down into playing offense and playing defense.
This is a crucial distinction. Not every disruption requires you to transform. Sometimes you want to start the fire, and sometimes you just want to survive it.
Let's start with zone offense, the disruptor.
This is when you want to catch a next-generation wave, like the cloud or AI, and ride it to a massive valuation jump. The path here is linear. You start in incubation with the seed of an idea. You move it to transformation to scale it. And if you succeed, it graduates and becomes a new line of business in the performance zone.
And the timeline.
It's tight. Moore says you must scale to material size within a finite window. He suggests 3 years or less.
3 years to get to 10% of a giant company's revenue. That is incredibly fast.
It is. That's why it requires the rule of 1. You are betting the farm. You're all in.
But then there is zone defense. This is when you are the disruptee. Someone else is the disruptor, and they are coming for you. The quote from the host notes here is hilarious. When consultants tell you to disrupt yourself, tell them to get lost.
It's blunt, but he's right. If you are the incumbent, let's say you're a taxi company or a hotel chain or a government post office, your goal isn't to blow up your own business just because it's trendy. Your goal is to prevent the next wave from catching you. You want to hold on to your market share for as long as possible.
So what is the playbook for defense? It's not just ignore it, right? Because that's how you die.
No, ignoring it is how you end up on the list of 56 dead companies. The defense playbook has 3 steps: neutralize, optimize, and differentiate.
Let's break those down. Step 1.
Neutralize. Neutralize means you copy the disruptor's key features just enough to be good enough. You don't have to be better. You just have to be good enough so that your existing customers don't have to leave. You remove their reason to switch.
The example given is Uber versus San Francisco cabs.
Right. Uber comes in with this amazing app. You can hail a car, track it, pay automatically. It disrupted the taxi industry. The taxi companies play defense. They didn't try to build a better Uber. They just used an app called Flywheel. It let you hail a cab and pay by phone. Was it as good as Uber? No. But it was good enough to stop some people from switching. It neutralized the core innovation.
But the cabs couldn't fix the underlying model. Right. The dirty cars, the rude drivers, the unpredictable pricing.
That's where the defense often fails if you stop at neutralize. That's why step 2 is optimize. You use the productivity zone to cut costs and lower prices. If you can't be better, be cheaper, make your core business more efficient.
And step 3.
Differentiate. Remind people why they liked you in the first place. Reaffirm your legacy value propositions.
Like IBM pivoting from hardware to services under Lou Gerstner.
Exactly. Gerstner at IBM realized the mainframe hardware business was dying. But the value enterprise, reliability, trust, deep customer relationships, service, That was still there. So he differentiated by wrapping world-class services around the hardware. He played defense on hardware to play offense on services.
Let's look at the big case study in the source material. Microsoft. Now, looking at Microsoft today, they seem invincible. But the source material was written a few years ago when Microsoft was, well, kind of uncool. They were seen as a dinosaur.
They were in a very tough spot. Their performance zone Windows Office servers was under attack from 3 directions simultaneously. Mobile was attacking Windows with Apple and Android. The cloud was attacking their server business led by Amazon AWS. And collaborative computing was attacking Office with Google Apps.
And Microsoft wasn't exactly known for being a cool startup incubator. They weren't an incubation zone company.
No. The source explicitly says Microsoft has never been much of an incubator. Their historic strategy was fast follower. Macintosh invented the GI, Windows copied it and took the market. Lotus invented the spreadsheet, Excel copied it and took the market.
So they are the kings of playing defense, of neutralize.
Yes, but with mobile and cloud, they were late. Very late. So look at their defense strategy under Satya Nadella. It was brilliant. First, neutralize. He declared mobile first, cloud first. They launched Azure to stop enterprise clients from fleeing to Amazon. It didn't have to be better than AWS at first. It just had to be a credible Microsoft option so CIOs didn't have to leave the ecosystem.
And what about mobile? They lost the phone war. The Windows Phone was a disaster.
They did. They lost it badly. So they neutralized by putting Office on iOS and Android.
Which was huge. I remember when that happened, it felt like hell freezing over. It was unthinkable.
It was radical. For decades, Office was the weapon used to sell Windows. You want the best version of Office. You need a PC. By putting Office on the iPhone, they admitted defeat in the device war. That's defense. To save their productivity software franchise, that's neutralize.
They kept professionals in the Microsoft ecosystem, even if they had an Apple logo in their pocket.
That's a great example of prioritizing the war over the battle. They lost the device battle to win the productivity war.
And it worked.
It worked spectacularly. And now look at them. Azure is a monster. They successfully moved from playing defense on cloud to playing offense on cloud, and now AI. They survived the transition. They didn't end up on the list of 56.
So we've got the theory, we've got the case study. Now let's talk about application. For our listeners, whether they are in the PPE 5361 study group or just managing a team, how do you actually install zone management? Because this sounds like something that requires a massive consultant army. Can we do this on a Monday morning?
You can start. The sources give us a 5-step plan for your annual planning cycle. It's very practical.
Step 1, zone your orgs.
You have to look at every initiative and every budget line item and ask, which zone is this funding coming from? It must be one specific zone, no ambiguity. Is this a performance zone activity designed to make the number this quarter? Or is it an incubation zone activity designed to create an option for 3 years from now? If you mix them, you lose accountability.
Step 2, lock in the performance matrix.
This means clarifying ownership. Who owns the rows, the products? Who owns the columns, the sales channels? And are they big enough, that 10% rule? You need clear, hard commitments here. I, the VP of Sales for Europe, commit to delivering $50 million from the SUV product line. If you don't lock this down, the foundation of the whole company gets shaky.
Step 3, activate productivity.
This goes back to the programs versus systems discussion. Isolate them. Stop letting the IT department run custom marketing programs poorly. Stop letting the marketing department build rogue IT systems that aren't secure. Give the productivity zone a clear mandate: efficiency and standardization.
Step 4, fence off incubation.
This is critical. Give the independent operating units their own money, a separate budget. And importantly, leave them alone. Do not force them into the quarterly business review cycle of the performance zone. Govern them with a venture board.
And who sits on that venture board?
Usually the CEO, maybe the head of product, the head of strategy, people who can look at a milestone like Series A MVP and first 10 customers and say go or no go based on that, not on revenue. It's a different kind of governance.
And finally, step 5, declare the transformation.
This is the most important strategic decision of the year. The executive team must decide. What is our stance on the transformation zone? Are we inactive, meaning we are just focusing on the current business? Are we proactive, meaning we are playing offense to catch a wave? Or are we reactive, meaning we are playing defense against a threat?
And the source has a warning here.
Yes, you must declare one state. You cannot be inactive and proactive at the same time. You cannot say, We're just focusing on the core, and also we are betting the farm on this new thing. If you try to be everything, you end up confused, diluted, and eventually failed.
It really comes down to clarity and courage, doesn't it? The courage to say no to a bunch of good ideas because you are focusing on the one best idea for transformation.
It does. The courage to let the incubation zone fail without punishing the people involved. The courage to disrupt your own cash cow before someone else does it for you.
This has been a fantastic run-through. Let's recap the key takeaways for our study group. Number 1, disruption is inevitable. Speed plus disruption equals the new normal. You can't hide from it.
Number 2, success requires separating sustaining efforts in Horizon 1 from disruptive efforts in Horizon 3. You cannot manage them with the same people, the same budget, or the same metrics.
Number 3, the critical link and the most dangerous place is the transformation zone, Horizon 2. This is where the CEO must pick one winner and bet the farm.
And finally, remember why companies fail. It's rarely a lack of talent or resources. It's deeply entrenched legacies, tired partner ecosystems, unsympathetic investors, and an internal culture rife with entitlement and politics. Structure eats strategy for breakfast. If you don't zone your strategy is just a PowerPoint deck.
That is a powerful thought. I want to leave our listeners with one final provocative thought to mull over. Look at your own organization. Maybe it's your agency in the public service context, or maybe your own business. Are you trying to incubate a new idea using performance zone metrics? Are you asking an innovator to prove the ROI before they've even built the prototype?
Or, on the flip side, are you ignoring a clear disruption that requires a transformation zone response because you're too afraid to touch the cash cow? Are you playing defense when you should be, or are you just sticking your head in the sand?
That's the question. Remember, you can't catch the next wave if you're too busy protecting the last one.
That says it all.
Mic drop. Thank you all for joining our little study group deep dive today. Hopefully this helps you crack the code on Zone to Win.
Thanks for listening. Go zone your organizations.
See you next time.